Oh,
Still waiting.
well, that was the
people.
best intro we have ever done. I don't think you're going to be able
Can
to
you
top
see us,
that.
guys? Can you see us now? Yes.
Oh, they
Somebody
missed
please.
the
Not
best
even
intro
the
ever.
normal music. Oh man, Kim got scared for nothing. Can you guys see and hear us now?
Super.
Somebody comment, please. It looks like we're seeing. Okay, yes. Okay. Well, should we just
We're
like
live
start it
now.
from the top? No sexy music yet. Yes. Well, we did have sexy music. We just hadn't gone live yet. Rob's muted.
Oh my God, technology, guys. Yeah, we're going to start from the beginning. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. This is just a little preview. Let's roll.
And go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's up, guys? This is Rob, and I've got hashtag damn thighs.
What's up, guys? We got Murph and Shay, and welcome to the Waiting Table Podcast. What's up, guys? This feels like deja vu. This is so strange to see you.
It's been a while, guys. Sheesh.
But I do want to say we're going to start doing disclaimers, saying that we're not doctors. So anything we talk about, just know we are just bariatric patients. We're not experts. Check with your doctors if you have any questions. We had a little bit of a rough start. How are we doing, Murph? Are we there? Are we live? Are you alive?
Yeah, Murph froze there.
It's glitching.
It's glitching. Are you doing
you
well?
You guys are freezing up pretty bad too. It's glitching. Yeah, it's really bad.
Internet gods, come on, help us out here.
Somebody
we'll make it happen.
Connections. All right.
We'll make it happen. All right, Murph, bring us in, buddy. Oh, maybe he's glitching again. Can you hear us, Murph?
I can barely hear you guys. You're glitching pretty hardcore.
Oh, no. Well, thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the Waiting Table Podcast, where we have roundtable discussions about the hottest topics in weight loss with, of course, the coolest people from the bariatric community. I'm Rob. Somewhere here is Murph. We got Shay. Murph just left. So grab a chair, wind down from your busy day, and take a seat at the table. We have more space today because Murph just glitched out. So let's just go with it for now. Shay, how's it going?
Good. Welcome. It looks like we have quite a new people that are on live with us tonight. So if you're new, welcome. It's been like a weird glitchy night. Normally we run things pretty smoothly, but we're rolling with it. But I have some pretty exciting news to share. Maybe we'll wait until Murph gets on here. But we have some exciting announcement. The three of us, me, Rob, and Murph, are officially ProCare warriors. I feel like you have to say it like that.
You have to flex when you say it.
What
is this? What is that one? Okay, guys.
Like, maybe I'm thinking like this.
Everyone in the chat, anyone who's watching live, if you're ever like at the gym and you're like, I want to flex or something, don't do this.
Isn't that a pose? Don't people do that? Maybe
I guess.
I don't know. I'm gonna make it a thing. That's my pose. You just got to own it. Act confident and no one will question it.
Act confident. No one will question. It'll work well. Shay, other than actually, we have a question right off the bat. What's ProCare?
Yeah, so ProCare is an amazing supplement company. They have awesome products. They're specific for bariatrics. And so I tried a lot of different vitamins and they all kind of made me feel not so great, where I would get nauseous and not feel so good. ProCare is amazing. They're the only supplement that doesn't make me feel sick. They have awesome protein. They have calcium chews. They have lots of cool things. Yeah. So go check them out and make sure when you check out, you use the code TWT10 for 10% off. I love that you can get a subscription. So that way you don't have to, I forget to order vitamins. And so I just have it on auto renew. It's awesome. So go check them out.
Yeah, and honestly, the big thing that I actually like with them is just their commitment to the community. If you've ever gone to any meetups, any of the events, any of the big events coming on, Murph's trying to get back on, so we'll see when he logs in. But ProCare is there, they're representing and they're supporting the community. So I think that's a big thing, especially for what we do here. And this is actually also going to lead into our guest tonight, who also has been doing a ton to support our community specifically. So tonight, we are welcoming a guest who's joining us for the second time. She's only the second guest actually to join us 2 times, which is amazing. And I think there is an amazing reason. You guys are going to see it soon. She's a bariatric dietitian who specializes in helping patients succeed at enjoying an active lifestyle post-op, and has worked with some of the coolest people in our community, including Rob, My Weight is History, and yours truly on My Current Cutting Phase. Chock full of amazing knowledge and an absolute pleasure to work with. We welcome Kim Terapelli from Active Bariatrics. Hey!
So will you still work with us even though our names are not Rob? Or, like, is that a requirement?
Prerequisite.
Do you guys want to hear the funny story? Is that like I've had like several boyfriends named Rob, and my husband was like, "You work with a lot of Robs. What's up with Robs?" I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird.
They're drawn to you.
I don't know. It's a Rob thing. I don't know. But hey, you guys.
How are you?
It's so good to see you.
I'm good. How are you guys? Fresh off all these awards you've received. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh. It was so cool. It was such a cool experience. And just meeting each other, the 3 of us in person for the first time, that was wild. I want to meet you in person, Kim.
Me too.
I want to meet you guys. I'm not going to lie that I totally was like obsessed with your video of you guys meeting. I watched the whole thing.
Oh,
I was like, that was so awesome. It was just so cool because I think we all connect so much over the internet. And then when you actually meet people in person, it's like, I know Shay, you were saying, you're like, I'm a little nervous. That's how I'm going to feel in a couple of weeks. I'm going to the bariatric retreat. And I feel like I'm going to be nervous to meet people, you know, it's going to be weird. So I'm excited.
It definitely is a different experience, and you don't know how to experience it, like especially you coming from a professional standpoint. It's I think, you know, what starts as, you know, this is my professional business, you make some really good relationships with people, and it's something about social media and connecting with people over the internet and in our communities. It's amazing. Yeah, I've become a believer because I was very skeptical previously, so it's pretty awesome.
I totally agree.
It's kind of overwhelming too, and so like, any advice maybe for those that are going to their first meetup? I only had my first meetup this last year. And so I've had 2 so far in my whole life, and they were both this last year. And it's like, just take the time you need, know that it's going to be a little overwhelming. And the cool thing is a lot of other people feel similarly. So you don't worry about like, oh, am I going to feel awkward or look awkward if I need to take time, or if I don't really know what to say? It's like, we're all feeling similarly. So it's like, just show up as yourself, and it's so much fun. I'm so excited you get to go to retreat. I've heard so many good things about it.
Yeah, it's my first time too. So I'm excited. I'm going to be presenting with Rob DeMadio, and we're going to be chatting. Yeah. And just get excited to meet. A lot of my clients are going to be there too. So yeah, I'm just really excited about it. It's going to be great.
That's awesome.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So I know we asked this previously, but I want to ask this again because we have a lot of new people listening today. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and sort of your journey to working with, the bariatric community, how that came about, and sort of what you like, what you don't like about it, what's your favorite parts about it, all that good stuff.
All the good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give a quick like Cliff's note. So I was always an athlete growing up, but I played sports, and that's kind of what initially got me interested in the field of nutrition. I always thought I was going to be a teacher. I indeed actually ended up being a high school PE and health teacher for a year. But in my time at college, when I played soccer at the University of Illinois, I was always tired and like, just kind of feeling like crap in my workouts. And my coach was like, hey, you should go talk to this dietitian. I didn't even know what a dietitian was. And so I met with this dietitian who ended up being a mentor of mine later in my career. But Susan Kundret, her office was in a grocery store in Urbana, Illinois. And I went and met with her, and she reviewed my log, and she was just like, yeah, your intake's terrible. Like, no wonder you feel like crap and you're not, able to gain any muscle or anything like that. And so she helped me really change my nutrition. And that's what really got my wheels spinning around the field of nutrition, the career of a, dietitian, with the little problem of the fact that was my junior year. And so I was almost done with my teaching credentials credential. And my parents weren't like really a big fan of me starting over and
Yeah.
going back to the drawing board. So they were like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and finish your current degree before you go back and start over? So I ended up finishing that. I taught, but during that year of teaching, I just was like, no, I want to be a dietitian. So I ended up going back. I did complete my master's degree in nutritional sciences and my dietetic internship at Fresno State. And so my first job was actually in clinical. So I worked in a hospital as an inpatient dietitian, and the floor that I covered was the surgical floor. And so that was where the bariatric patients had surgery. And so my first job for the first several years was working with the patients that had surgery, and I would help them with basically their post-op diet progression. And because I was just on the inpatient side, I didn't get to see them. They would leave and it was like, good luck, with your life, and I was like, well, that sucks. I don't, I can't help him anymore. And I didn't really, that part I didn't love. And so I knew eventually I'd move into outpatient because I really liked working one-on-one with people. But to kind of tie in the sports nutrition piece, while I worked inpatient, because I still had an interest in sports nutrition, since that was kind of my background, I started volunteering at Fresno State, which is a Division I university here where I live. And I basically went in there and was like, hey, I'd like to help your athletes. And they were kind of like, who are you? They didn't have a dietitian at the time. They didn't really even know what that person might offer. So I started doing one-on-ones with athletes, educating them, helping them with their intake, grocery store tours morning and night. I would do team presentations. Yeah, it was really cool. And I also ended up teaching sports nutrition there as well for several years. And so that kind of helped me to get, lots of experience working with elite athletes and I worked with people outside the community as well in athletics and sports and things like that. And then my next position was my main position for 10 years. I worked in an outpatient bariatric surgical center where I was the dietitian. I worked both inpatient or both pre and post-op. And the biggest question that I got was, hey, I want to start lifting. I want to start running. And the advice that our team gave, including me, because I was under the guide of our surgeons, was, 8 to 1,200 calories, 60 to 80 grams of protein.
Yep.
And, it kind of was frustrating because I knew as a dietitian and someone that has worked with athletes, I was like, that's not enough. Like, this isn't going to cut it. And we can only say that for so long until they start coming back saying, that sucks. It's not really helpful. And I feel like poop and I'm not able to do all these great things. So in 2022, I ended up opening up my own private practice and started to work with active individuals who want to change their nutrition to meet their new fitness goals after bariatric surgery. So that's the whole story.
That is an amazing story. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Because like for me everything you said resonates with me because that was exactly my journey. I remember the question I had when I met with my surgeon a couple of weeks before surgery was, can I keep being active? Can I keep doing endurance cycling afterwards? They're like, oh yeah. And then there was like, okay, talk with our dietitian. I talked to the dietitian. Like, yeah, you could definitely eat very little calories. And I'm just like, this is not helpful at all. And I know this from research and things I used to do in my previous life. And it was a bit daunting because that was enough for me to be like, to question whether this is what I wanted to do, just because, I think all of us if we think back to our pre-op selves and the questions we had and the thoughts we had, there was often that question of, is this what I'm going to be eating for the rest of my life? Right. So when you throw in the challenge of, I want to be a bodybuilder, I want to weight lift, I want to do CrossFit, I want to do endurance cycling, run a marathon. How do I do that if I can only eat what they're telling me I can ingest? Right. And that's the big challenge. And that's why I think what you offer is so valuable, because we're seeing a huge influx of people who are sharing their fitness stories as part of their bariatric story, which I absolutely love seeing it. That's what motivates me. And I love seeing those people progress to that, but it's again, always that question, how do I do this? Yeah. So I love that you can help with those patients. So awesome.
Yeah, no, I think some of the main message that I tell folks too is that this is a progression. Like when you guys, when you first have your surgery, no, you're not going to be able to eat a significantly elevated amount of calories and carbs and things like that. It's going to take time, but so will your evolution in your movement as well. You're not going to right out of the gate either jump into a marathon. You know what I mean? So
Right.
just like anything else, your nutrition eventually will and can over time gradually start to increase, to match that. Now, it may not be exact same as someone that hasn't had bariatric surgery, but
Right.
we can do the best that we can to increase your overall intake and carbs and all those things to help fuel whatever these goals are. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I've tried to blend the sports nutrition guidelines and the bariatric nutrition guidelines into a plan that can help, each individual person. So
And one thing I appreciate with you, and it's because, with my background with work, it's all about clinical studies. It's all about data. And so, for those who don't know, I'm doing a cutting phase or cutting cycle. I know Jamie Blair had asked what she doesn't know exactly what a cutting cycle is. So for me, it's pretty much I'm alternating or doing a large progression of trying to gain muscle. So going on a bulk phase, and then I am periodically going on a cutting phase, which is to cut down body fat, but with the main goal of not losing any muscle, right? Like I've done hey, look, I'm 168 now, and I look at pictures and I'm emaciated, right? And I think back to the way I felt. I didn't have energy. I know I didn't have that strength. And so my goal now is to put on more muscle, which I have, but to get rid of all that body fat. And it's interesting because now I compare pictures of me at 181 now versus 181 back then, and it's night and day because like I have so much more muscle. When we think about, like, I know when I used to think about what I want to look like, it's not 181 back then, it's 181 now. It's sort of, you have muscle, you have structure, you have stability and balance and agility and all those different things that we didn't have. And so I think that's really, really important. So that's what I'm doing with Kim. And the big thing I liked is I would constantly be going back with Kim about certain things, and she would send me articles and data, which is great for me because I will read those things, those studies, but it's because we want to make sure we base everything on science. Like, how many people do we know who's just like, oh yeah, just eat, you need to eat 300 grams of protein. I'm just like, I can't do that. Tiny tummy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm thinking about, like, I know there's a population within the bariatric community that are thinking about conceiving, like, and having kiddos. And I know that's not like being a bodybuilder, but it's, hey, we got Murph on.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
I can't hear you.
Oh, no, he's lying.
I'm sorry. Not the right time. Sorry.
Not the right time nor place. No. But, and so I just wonder too, like, when we think of nutrition, whether you're being more active or potentially even like supporting a new life, like I kind of think of it similarly in that we probably need more nutrition, and not a lot of people are talking about that either.
100%.
So I don't know. I guess I'm just saying that as a statement, and I guess as a question of like, do you work with people kind of in that boat too, Kim? Like, even if that's not the goal to be a bodybuilder, like, but in that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, when folks, one of the main questions I always get is like, what does an athlete mean? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean when you say you work with, bariatric athletes or whatever? And I almost wish now I had like reworded those things differently in my initial marketing, statements, because I work with anyone that's moving their body with a purpose and with, they have maybe particular goals, and whatever those goals are, everybody's different. Some people just want to be able to work out 3 times a week at the gym and they don't know what to eat pre and post workout. And I work with those folks, you know what I mean? Or some people want to start training for an endurance event or a bodybuilding show or whatever. And in the case of moms who are, trying to basically, have their body ready to be able to conceive and have a baby, I don't specialize in, maternal nutrition. That's not my area of expertise. And I know that when I had my previous position, we had dietitians that specifically worked with moms who have had bariatric surgery and now become pregnant. And the main difference is really from just a standard bariatric diet. And again, I'm speaking in generalities, please, just like you said in the beginning, always speak to your doctor and your OBGYN. But the main things we really honed in on was eating on a consistent schedule, no skipping, because you are trying to give nourishment, if you are pregnant, to your baby as well as you, right? So we're not skipping. We have to meet our protein goals. We have to be taking our bariatric vitamins and minerals and whatever amounts that your OBGYN recommends, because sometimes that does change with what's recommended. And then just, movement in whatever capacity you're able to do. but it's not terribly far off of the bariatric diet. It's just that we do tend to recommend increasing a little bit because you are feeding now yourself and a baby, and that's okay. And during pregnancy, you have to consume more for a growing baby, and that's okay. And then once you have the baby, if you want to, change your intake to match, you don't have a baby inside, you can actually reduce a little bit further. You could at that point. But certainly there was an increase over the pregnancy. Absolutely.
It's awesome. Are you okay? We had a really good question that I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Are you okay if we do a question?
Sure, please.
Okay. So this is actually from my dad.
Also named.
Another Rob, believe it or not. So he's asking, can a bariatric diet help the person that does not meet the BMI weight loss surgery person? So essentially somebody who maybe isn't quite high enough on the BMI scale, can they do a bariatric diet, and will that help potentially lose excess weight or maybe just become overall more healthy? What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on it would just be, so think about the surgery, the tool itself when someone has surgery is actually, it's not forcing you, but we've changed your body's anatomy, physiology, hormones, everything to, overall reduce intake, whether we're reducing it physically because we're eating less or we're not absorbing all the nutrients. And so that tool in and of itself makes it different than someone that hasn't had it, who has the capacity to eat more calories. But I would just say the difference would just be the bariatric intake is going to be significantly lower just because, again, we're surgically reducing the amount of volume that you can hold. So for someone that hasn't had bariatric surgery, some of the tenets, the principles for weight loss would still be important. For example, increasing our protein intake, right? Because when we want to maintain muscle as we lose body fat, we want to increase our protein intake. And that can be helpful also for making us feel more full. So we eat actually less because we feel more full in between meals. And then just looking at other factors like, substituting out maybe things, more processed foods for more whole grains and fresh fruits and vegetables, with which a bariatric patient would tolerate better anyways, right? As compared to someone that might not have some of the issues that can come with bariatric surgery, like eating a high fat food might be an issue, or high sugar food. And so basically to answer it in summary, your calories aren't going to be as low because a bariatric patient typically are going to have more restrictions, whereas someone that hasn't had the surgery can still utilize a more protein-based diet, and that can help them with weight loss as long as they're also moving their body as well. So, and then I always get this question too, can I take the same vitamins as my spouse or someone that's had bariatric surgery? And that too, I would say, is different because someone that hasn't had bariatric surgery will not need the amount of specific vitamins and minerals that are in these bariatric formulations, like the ProCare, for example. A standard person necessarily wouldn't need that, or they could take like half of one, because they don't need as high amount as someone that's had bariatric surgery. So that's the other piece that I always get in kind of that same line.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
From someone who you may know here, Mary in Motion. Kim, you are amazing at helping active bariatric patients. You saved me more than once. Yes, she
Mary,
is amazing.
Amazing.
And this is a question I get asked a lot, but I am not a doctor or a dietitian, so we're going to forward that to Kim. So, Rob, I need all that info. This is in regards to a cutting phase. That's the phase I've reached. I'm going to reach out to Kim for sure, which is great. What would you say is a good way to begin? Because I think the idea that we have in regards to I want to cut weight is very different from the idea of I want to cut body fat. Right. It's going to be significantly slower. And I know when it was a matter of cutting weight, especially if you're within the first year and a half of bariatric surgery, it was a lot easier. And it really, for me, came down a lot to calories because we just couldn't ingest the volume and the calories that we needed. I can ingest more calories now to sort of meet what my requirements are, but there's still limitations in terms of losing fat specifically. So can you talk to sort of the differences between that and sort of how you can approach that?
Yeah. So, I mean, my typical approach is the scale for me is not, I'm not a big fan of the scale. And I know I've said that a lot in my podcast and things like that, just because there's so many day-to-day factors that can cause fluctuations in the number on the scale. And some folks, you feel like you almost like live and die by the scale, and that can be so frustrating. I'm a bigger fan of body composition trends and measuring that, because when someone says like cutting to me, of course, a lot of times that means they want to see a lower number on the scale. But
Right.
what I try to kind of frame it as is we want to focus on maintaining and, or if possible, increasing muscle mass, because that's going to stimulate your metabolism, especially after that initial weight loss phase where we do tend to lose fat and muscle because we are intaking such a low amount. And so when we talk about like cutting, I look at more of reducing overall body fat while maintaining and or gaining muscle mass. That's how I reframe things. I try to move folks away from just this, yay or on the scale every day, because it's so, there's so many things that can impact that. And it's so frustrating. And regardless if you've had bariatric surgery or not. So the way that I go about it in terms of, working with folks is you said kind of where do you start? So depending upon where the person is. So for example, Rob, when you were doing your, calculations, because when you first, were doing this, you were kind of doing it on your own, and we were kind of just chatting back and forth about, like I said, how did you determine that and what formulas were you using, that kind of thing. So for someone who's a little farther out that has already gone through a rapid weight loss phase, in your case, you'd already been gaining some muscle mass and you were just trying now to lean out a little bit further. In your case, we actually used a calculation. You used the Catch-McCardle, right, to establish your resting metabolic rate, and then you factored an activity factor. And for those of you that are like, what does that all mean? If you can actually go online if you wanted to, and you can actually look up like a total daily energy expenditure calculator, and it'll factor in also your you can factor in activity factor, and that kind of gives you an idea as to what is an overall day of how much do I expend in a day, how many calories am I burning in a day. Now, the caveat to that though is, of course, there can be error born, in that. How does bariatric surgery impact that? None of these calculations take that into account. And so there is where the issue can be with those types of calculations. So some people that are farther out like to use those types of calculations to give us a starting point. And then if, for example, you're trying to lean out a little bit, we're going to maybe go below that. And typically what I do is I start with a kind of a more conservative reduction of maybe only 200 calories a day for a few weeks. And then you can do more if you want, 500 if you want. But some people find that the 200 is more realistic. Another method that might be more standard and kind of friendlier to get going with is keep a food log for a week and see where you're at, right? This is what my current patterns are. Right now, I take in this based on my food log. I'm averaging whatever, 12, 14, I don't know, whatever it might be, 16, maybe it's 1,000, I don't know. And this is how many grams of protein I'm eating and carbs. And what you might consider doing is just to make some small minor changes from that baseline. So if you're wanting to gain muscle, maybe we add 200 calories a day and we bump up our protein, okay? If we are wanting to lose some body fat, maybe we just subtract if we have calories to subtract, because that's where the gray areas comes in, where that's why I recommend working with a dietitian, because if you're only at 1,000 calories and you're like, I'm going to cut, it's like, from where? Like,
where?
What are we doing? You can't, cutting is not always the answer is merely my summary on that. So it can be tricky, but I always just start off with, let's see where you're at right now, and let's see which direction we can make a minor change and see how that goes for a few weeks.
Yeah. Amazing questions actually coming into the chat. I love all these questions. Just sort of in the same vein in terms of what you were just talking about. I know that there's other ones previously that we'll get to. Rab says, I've heard the body only processes a certain amount of protein. Could you speak about protein overload? Is that a thing? And this is even more important for us as bariatric patients, because this takes into things consideration a bit more. So
yeah, it's a great question. I actually just answered this question recently on my podcast, because I get that all the time. Like, how much protein can I eat? So here's what I always try to, again, get to the bottom of is, so there's a difference between how much protein can I eat at one time that my body is going to use for like muscle protein synthesis, which is what usually folks that are coming to me are really wanting to know, like, how much should I eat, or how much can I eat maximum at a meal that my body's going to use for basic muscle protein synthesis or other beneficial factors or processes in my body, versus the question of what's the most possible protein amount I can eat in my body before, it doesn't use it. And the answer to that is your body is going to digest and absorb nearly all of it, with the exception of patients that have had a gastric bypass or a duodenal switch, where there will be some malabsorption to that. How much? I can't tell you the exact amount. I don't know that there's a study that says the duodenal switch and the bypass only can maximally absorb this amount. different on that. But in regards to the first part of that, I was saying in regards to like muscle protein synthesis, the general consensus out there seems to be somewhere, again, this will be variable, but 20 to 40, maybe 50 grams at a meal. There seems to be a cap at the amount at a meal that more than that isn't going to stimulate any further muscle protein synthesis. So I'm hoping that that is what the person was asking. But that seems to be the amount per meal. And I'll give you one other, for those of you that are number mongers, kind of like me and Rob are.
Yeah. I just had my calculator off right now and I was calculating.
So here's one for you. 0.4 to 0.55 gram per kilogram per meal is the amount that's recommended to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So 0.4 to 0.55 gram per basically per kilogram per meal. So it's
that
extra.
That equals hashtag them thighs.
Yeah.
That's the equation.
E
Okay.
equals MC squared.
Yes.
So,
and 2.2 pounds per kilogram, my
yes.
non-Canadian friends.
That's correct. Yeah. So basically, and really to summarize that, it ends up being between 20 to 40 grams per meal, basically, for most folks, weights. So what I usually tell folks is try to get to 30 grams if you can, because that seems to be kind of in the middle of that range and is enough for, I don't know if people are asking about like the branched chains and all these kind of supplements that are out there. But for those of you that have been wondering about that, leucine is the branched chain that is an essential amino acid, meaning we don't make it in our body. You have to eat it. Okay. And what, again, research has shown is that we need about 3 to 5 grams per meal to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And that's about 30 grams of protein that we're eating, whether that's from a shake or from steaks or eggs or chicken, 4 to 5 ounces of chicken or so, maybe 3.5 to 4 ounces. It just depends. And that'll get you the amount of protein you need for muscle protein synthesis. So I hope that answered that question.
No, that was really good. And just so people are aware, because I know I get a lot of comments about, oh my God, you take in 200 grams of protein. So I take, previously I was taking 2,500 calories, 200 grams of protein. And a lot of people are just like, how the heck do you do that? It is hard. Remember, so doing sort of what we're doing is not necessarily for everyone. As Kim said, cutting's not for everyone. And so you need to really look at your situation. I'm 3 years post-op. I can eat that much. Is it still hard? Yes. Because Kim, actually, we had this discussion, and this was early on when I had lost 10 pounds in that first week. We know that a lot of it was water now, but we were trying to understand what it was. And she was like, you may have to eat more. I'm like, Kim, I'm eating like every hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm so full all the time. But that's, again, it's not for everyone. It's based on where you are. And if you need to have like a little bit of shakes every meal to top up, that's what I end up having to do, because I just can't eat that volume of food. Yeah. So that ends up being sort of what I do.
And I wanted to just comment on that, because I think something that you and I, which was, I thought, a valuable discussion, was in the beginning, when you initially reduced your intake, you reduced your calories, you reduced you kept your protein up, you were basically eating. And so for muscle gaining purposes, or to really, when you're in a deficit, you want to keep your muscle intake up. And so the range is about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound. And you were eating about 1 gram per pound for protein, because you were 200 pounds, you were eating 200 grams of protein. You were also eating about 200 grams of carbs. And so my thought to you too was, not only maybe we had interpreted the calculation for your calories, but I thought maybe your carbs were too low for the amount of activity that you were doing. Now, I know people hear that, they're like, what? 200 carbs too low? And you were doing a lot of different cardio movements, pickleball. I mean, you could tell everybody kind of what you were doing, plus the walking. It was the neat calories too, if I remember.
Yeah, that's weird. It's like, no, cut those. Yeah.
You were moving a ton. But my point was in that initial weight loss phase, I think you lost water weight because you reduced your carbohydrates weren't enough for what your body was needing. And so they were using those stores. And when we use up carbohydrate stores, we are taking water out of the cell. And so it's like when someone goes on a lower carb diet and all of a sudden they lose 5 or 7 pounds in a week and they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. Yeah. Well, it's because when we don't eat carbohydrate, remember, when we store carbs in our muscles, we draw in water also. So when that glycogen is then used, whether it's because we're in a deficit and our body's using it just to live or to move, we're taking that water out. And so when we get on the scale, we see a number decrease. So in your case, I thought too, maybe your carbohydrates were, lower than what you needed for the amount of activity you were doing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so important to call out too, I guess this will round out to a question for you, Kim, but I know that as people who have struggled with obesity, we've always been told eat less, exercise more, right? And it's
Yes.
been this very, in my opinion, toxic and inaccurate approach when treating obesity. Again, not a doctor. That's just it for myself. I feel like it's been very inaccurate. But one of the things that surprised me as I was learning more about nutrition, and this was before I even um, was considering bariatric surgery as an option. I did a lot of learning about nutrition and macros and how to eat more like balanced and whole foods before even considering bariatric surgery. I was shocked. I was working with a nutritionist and I was shocked that she said I was under eating because it's like I'm a larger person. I was like 283 pounds at that point. And when you have professionals telling you all the time, like, well, just eat less and exercise more, it's like for the first time she told me, no, like you're not fueling your body properly. You're like very severely under eating. And so I guess my question for you with that, is that a common thing that you see with the population that you work with? And just like maybe if you can shed some light, and the more I think we talk about obesity as a disease and painting it in that, I know it's been super validating for me. So just anything you have to share about that.
Yeah. I mean, first off, it's a multifactorial disease. There are so
Yeah.
many things that go into it. It's not just we're not all walking equations of calories in and calories out. We're not, and it does not work that way. There's so many other factors that, can impact obesity. And so, so first off, I would say, yes, what I find is that we kind of over adjust and we go so low in calories, and then now compared to someone that's had bariatric surgery, we're purposely have gone low. And that initial weight loss phase, again, I think one of the biggest things that I'm hoping we're going to kind of turn towards as we move forward here and get more highlight and spotlight on active folks is the importance of maintaining the muscle mass during that initial weight loss phase and getting it back on as fast as we can if we have lost it, because that really drives our metabolism. And so when someone is trying to lose weight and the only thing they can think of is like keep cutting, at some point your body doesn't have the energy. It's going to start breaking down muscle as an energy source, which is not desirable. And so really, to kind of get back to your initial question, I would say I do see that frequently. And again, what I try to reframe it is as we're trying to optimize your body composition so that for life, you can do all these great movements and goals and, whatever it is, have a baby and be healthier overall. And so we have to kind of rev up the metabolism. And really by doing that is trying to stimulate with some muscle gains, really. And also just changing the calories so that we're optimizing what you're taking in, the foods that you are eating, because a lot of times folks, we just look at the quality of the diet is not good either. Regardless of the calories, the quality is not good either. And so really I look at both quality and quantity and see how we can make both of those better. So going less is not always the answer. It actually can, slow metabolism further, and that is not what you want.
Right. Awesome. I want to, I know there's so many questions. I'm sorry, everyone.
Everyone is just like loving everything.
I'm sort of like,
Kim.
I'm trying to okay, I can ask this next, but this one is really in a good place. So this is a question about carbs, which I absolutely love because I know that you had a pod recently and you were talking about carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. I love carbs. Carbs are my favorite. They are required. And I know, Kim, you constantly ask me, and Murph lost it. Oh, sorry. Carbs, like you're constantly asking me, how do you feel? Is your energy low? Is your, are you okay? Are you, mentally, are you feeling okay with everything? Because that's a lot of this is related to your carb intake. Yes. So the question was, if carbs are high and sugar is low, say 2 grams or less, is it safe to assume that carbs are good rather than bad? And then as a follow-up question, because I actually said carbs are my fave and even sugar has its place, can you describe your view on carbs first and where sugar fits within an active bariatric lifestyle, please?
Yeah.
I'm smiling so much. I'm so giddy talking about this crap. Woohoo! Love it.
Rob is like fangirling over you, Kim.
Right?
It's hard to get him
Kim.
ruffled up. It's easy
New
to get
Rob
nerves
over
like
here.
that, but Rob, yeah, that's I know he's excited.
No, I mean, first of all, let me just say carbohydrates is a fancy word for sugar. So let me just say that. And then when we get into carbohydrates, we talk about the different types of carbohydrates. So we talk about simple sugars, we talk about starch, we talk about fiber. And those are kind of the three categories of carbohydrates, so to speak. So there's a place for all of them, first of all. And what I would just say is again, as in the folks that I work with, carbohydrates have a place because as exercise intensity, duration, and frequency increases, so does your need for carbohydrate. And they play such an important role in how you feel, your time to fatigue when you're moving your body. And when we don't have adequate carbohydrate intake and we're demanding our body to do all these things, we really can start to see some of the negative effects. We can see increased upper respiratory tract infections. We can see more injuries. We can see just basically not being able to meet your goals, whatever those might be, whether it's muscle gain, whether it's endurance, whatever. So number one, I'm a fan of carbs, obviously. I know you guys all know that, but they all have a role. And when we talk about sugar, I'll just kind of go into this little, I guess we can say difference. So there's a time and a place for certain types of carbohydrates. So again, I'm talking around the active, goals. So for example, when someone says to me, what should I be eating? When's like sugar? When should I be eating like whole grains? I give them kind of a table of like, this is when you should be eating what. So if you're like 3 to 4 hours pre-workout, that is where you can have more whole grains or fruits or vegetables. Again, more fiber because your body has that time to digest it and kind of get it out of the way, right? Get it out so it's not sitting in there bouncing around. And it can provide you with a sustained energy source because carbohydrates are the muscle's energy source at moderate to high intensity levels. So if you're doing anything above like a walk and you're starting to pick it up, your body's using carbohydrate, okay? And so if you have 3 to 4 hours before a workout, you can have a more balanced plate. You can eat your protein, you can have your fruits, vegetables, starches, whole grains, whatever that might be, serving of fat like avocado or whatever. Great, all the things, okay? As we get closer to the start of your workout, we're going to decrease the volume of your intake because we don't want something in there bouncing around. And we're going to start shifting towards more easily digestible carbohydrate foods because we want the energy to be there when your muscles need it, right? We don't want it sitting in your stomach. We want it out and into the intestines and crossing into the bloodstream to be utilized by your muscles. So that is where I'm assuming, Rob, when someone says like sugar, more maybe when I say easy to digest, I don't mean, and I never say good or bad. I try to stay away from like, this is a good or bad. No, all foods can fit. Okay. But this is where things like, and these are all, healthful foods, bananas, applesauce, you could do graham crackers, pretzels. Some people will do dates. Some people will do dry cereal. These are going to be easier to digest because they're low in fat and fiber. They're going to break down quickly. Your muscles can use them quickly. So that's where more like easy to digest sugar would play a role. So I don't know if that kind of answers that or not, but that's kind of how I strategize and kind of separate out the different types of carbohydrate when I'm working with my folks.
And just to clarify, so that like having those easy and quick digestible carbs are helpful to have like right before movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 1 to 2 hours before is where you're going to start focusing on those. And some people are like, hey, I can't have anything. Can I just have some fluids? That's fine too. Research has shown that even just rinsing your mouth out with a carbohydrate solution tells the brain that carbohydrates are coming, and it will actually increase your time to fatigue. Just a mouth rinse. So the power of carbs, just rinsing your mouth out is better than nothing.
Like with water, or what do you mean?
No,
a carb
with
rinse?
like think of like a sports drink. Like
Gatorade.
Okay. Like if you took a Gatorade and you went and you spit it out, they've actually done. It's like, how do you even think of doing that as a research study? But they looked at that to see, they usually do that on like cyclists, and they time the person's time to fatigue, how much energy they're expending, and they found that even just rinsing their mouth out with a carbohydrate solution pre-workout was helpful as compared to someone who did not and did nothing.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, so they play a role. And then I'll just finish off with post-workout too. We want to put that back into our muscles, right? Because we just used all those carbohydrates in our body that we store. So I typically try to recommend after you work out, if you could try to get a meal in or a snack post-workout within 1 to 2 hours, the sooner the better. But should have carbohydrate, at least 30 grams of carbohydrate, and I say about 20 to 40 grams of protein in those first 1 to 2 hours, and then just go on with your meals is normal.
Yeah. And so we did have a question in regards to sort of like the energy part, because someone was saying that they always feel tired. They little to no carbs. So do I need to eat more carbs? Also, when you do that, just again, understand what carbs do. So when you also take in carbs, you're also taking in water. So your scale might go up a bit when you first start ingesting carbs, but again, your energy will also relate to that as well, and you'll have more energy to that. So again, the question becomes, do you want to lose overall weight, including water weight, or do you want to lose fat? And that's sort of where you need to differentiate that, right?
And I think it's helpful to tie it to how you feel. I think so often it's easy for us to tie it to the scale of like, oh, when I eat this, this, and this, the scale goes up and down or whatever. And what's been really helpful for me in this journey is tying it to how I'm actually feeling. So just like as an example, right after surgery, my program recommended for me that for the first 6 months, I only was able to eat, like I had liquid phase, then the soft. And then after that, it was like just protein and vegetable carbs was what they recommended for that 6 months.
Yep.
For me, I felt so tired. I was having like hormonal stuff. Here, boys, sorry, it's a little period. I won't
every time, right?
I know,
Oh
I know.
my gosh.
But I was having a lot of like detoxing from different things, and I was so low energy and felt like hot garbage all the time. And I worked with my doctor and a nutritionist, and they were like, I know this is what your program recommended. And do you think maybe you could try to add in some like sweet potatoes, some oatmeal, like carbs that are a bit softer to kind of implement in? And again, I'm not recommending this for anybody, but for me, that was so helpful. And so being able to kind of tie that back to how I feel, now I'm able to know when my body feels certain ways. It's easy for me to say, oh, it's because like I haven't eaten enough. I haven't had enough protein today. Or like even right now I'm feeling tired and I'm going, oh man, I should have eaten a bit more before coming on. Like I know I need more protein and carbs and fat. Like I need everything because I'm hungry. But so that's helpful too, of like being able to feel what those things do to your body. And I don't know, any suggestions for that, Kim, or like some tips to kind of that you maybe share with people?
Yeah. I mean, so again, just like you said, you have to go through that initial post-op diet progression because, guys, the reason that protein is pushed so much is because of the immense amount of things protein does in our body. But number one, it prevents us from using muscle as an energy source when we're losing fat mass, right? So we don't want that. So protein is priority in the beginning because it makes hormones and antibodies and all kinds of enzymes and chemical reactions that happen in our bodies because of protein. So that is why protein is pushed. Now, as you kind of proceed out, you have to obviously prioritize getting in what your body can fit, right? So protein is always food first. We want to get that in first. And then we can start playing around with, vegetables, fruits, whole grains. And again, I don't want to go against anyone's surgical center guidelines, but my point to that would just be, like you're saying, Shay, if you really are feeling ill or you're not feeling well, of course, you could always speak to your surgical center about it. That might be a place where you just start trying some small portions of carbohydrate if it's allowed. But when I work with folks, usually that come to me, they're maybe a year farther out and they've kept that post-op diet. They're still doing minimal carbs, but now they're moving their body more and wanting and feeling worse about it, and feeling terrible in their workouts. So again, that's where I reiterate, that's where the importance of carbohydrate comes in. Your goals have changed. You're not in that immediate post-op phase where you could only eat a fourth cup or whatever it was for you, 1/4, 1/2, whatever your diet progression was. You're able to eat more. This is where we can now strategize on the plate to have, again, your protein food first. But now we want to balance it with those fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and serving of fat or whatever you can tolerate. But that small increases, I usually just say, let's try 15 grams. That's a half banana. That's 1/3 cup of brown rice. That's a half cup of oats. Small portion. Let's just see how you feel. Maybe you just need to increase it at one meal. Maybe it would be helpful to increase at each of your meals. You just have to kind of see how that goes. So that's very trial and error.
And one other thing, especially if we're talking about that bariatric patient getting into higher activity, especially putting on muscle mass. And a lot of people are like, oh, I need to go to the gym. I need to do training. Remember what you're doing when you're training. You are breaking down your muscle, right? And so you are causing micro tears in your muscle fiber. So you do that. It's like taking one step back, but in order to take those 2 steps forward, you need to eat properly and fuel, right? And so a lot of people think that the number one thing is, oh, I need to go to the gym. partially, yeah, but it's all about the diet, because if you keep up that diet you were saying, like that post-op diet, and now I'm going to the gym and breaking everything down, I'm just going to keep taking steps back, right? So the thing that we think is going to help us really can harm us at that time. So really look at the big picture in regards to it, because sleep is a big part of it.
Yes.
I don't sleep enough. That's a big part of fat loss.
And we're on him about that all the
100%.
time.
I slept 2.5 hours last night, guys. Yes.
Stop. Don't tell us that.
What? I'm like, I can't even function on that, Shay. Like, I'd be like,
No, I would be
Horrible.
a hot
Oh my
mess.
God.
I'd
No,
be
I couldn't
so
even do it.
no.
But all that's important.
It is.
Diet, eating, recovering, right? Because that's how you're going to rebuild, and getting that sleep. Because all the gains you make, everyone's like, oh, the gains are made in the kitchen. It's made in the kitchen, or sorry, not in the gym, but in the kitchen and in your bed when you sleep. So.
Yeah.
And I know too, I've been surprised. Like, I don't think of myself as an athlete or like somebody who does. Yeah. I mean, when I do this,
Because
I
you did this.
definitely
That's
do.
why.
Is that
like,
what
hey
gave
guys,
it
I'm an
away?
athlete. No, you're not, because you did that.
Is that what gave it away? Thing?
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is like it's more inadvertent or like without realizing I'm doing way more activity than I did prior to surgery. So that might be something just to consider too, where like I know as you guys started talking, I'm like, well, I don't really do that. And it's like, but how many more times do I go up and down
Yeah.
the stairs in my house
100%.
now? How many more times do I go on walks? You know, things like that I lived in a space for so long where I did not consider myself an active person. And sometimes that mindset still follows me of like, yeah, I'm not that much of an active person. But then when I think of all the stuff I'm doing, I'm like, no, I am pretty active because it's more natural now than maybe it was when I was a higher weight. So
Right.
just something to think about where it's like, you know what? I am an athlete. Look at me go.
There you go.
Look at this.
Get it. We're just gonna. This is gonna be our picture.
That's
for the
the new.
episode.
Okay.
I feel like that's what Hercules
Murph,
does.
get it
I'm
up.
gonna get a picture.
Oh my God. This is gonna be the picture for the podcast,
I
guys. We're
know.
gonna just pose like this. Can you just talk about, oh my God, 6 minutes left. Can you talk about NEAT? And the reason I ask that is because exactly what you're mentioning, Shay, and I know this applies to Murph a lot as well. And a lot of people, because, you know, if you have an active job, if you constantly have kids and you're running after them and walking the dog, if you park far and you're doing all that stuff, because I know back in the day when I was looking into sports nutrition and training and everything, NEAT was never a consideration.
Right.
It's for me, it's newer, and I absolutely love the idea. So can you talk about what that is, please?
Yeah. So NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Yeah, I'm trying to remember my old days here. But basically it's one component of your overall total daily energy expenditure. So there's the thermic effect of food, there's your basal metabolic rate, say that 100 times fast, thermic effect of activity, and then there's the NEAT. So each of those, think of it like like a Trivial Pursuit pie, right? Each of those little pieces contribute to your overall total daily expenditure in a day. And NEAT calories are basically just your day-to-day just movement. Like I'm walking to get my laundry. I'm going to go walk at the grocery store. So it's not like your 30-minute power walking session. That would be more in the activity, boat, so to speak. Now, for those of you that are like, hey, like I'll have folks that are like, I don't understand why I can't, I'm not losing, or I'm trying to lose some more weight, or whatever it might be. And when we talk about what they do their one workout, and then the rest of the day they're more sedentary, and that might just be because that's your job. Like, I get it. I sit a lot as well. But the NEAT calories they play a bigger role than we really previously thought. And so any additional movement that you can do, whether it's like Shay, you said, taking the stairs or parking your like you said, car farther away, whatever it might be, all those little things add up, you guys. And so there's been debate as to like, oh, is it the 8,000 steps a day? Is it 10,000 steps a day? It seems to be above 8,000 seems to be kind of what folks say is a helpful amount. If you're thinking of like how many steps in a day is like helpful to really try to aim towards, of course, start with wherever you're at, but by trying to slowly increase your just movement in general, that is increasing your overall expenditure. And that can help you if you're trying to, be in somewhat of a calorie deficit without having to cut a bunch of calories from your diet, from your intake.
Yeah, Shannon nailed it right on the head, because a lot of times we think, exactly, we need to go to the gym. Yep. NEAT is 63% of your day, and deliberate exercise roughly 4% of your day. And if you look at your caloric breakdown, NEAT is king, right? Yep. It's your basal metabolic rate, everything that your body needs to function and for you to live. And then it's all your daily movements. So, I know before it was like, oh, I got to work out and then I have to do a 30-minute cardio session afterwards, right?
Yeah.
I don't do cardio at the gym anymore, right? It's like, well, when we were talking, I was like, okay, so I'm playing pickleball or doing this much activity and I'm weightlifting and I'm also getting 10,000 steps a day. And so you're like, oh, maybe you need to up your carbs. I'm like, I can't eat anymore. So I'm going to cut my steps, 5,000 steps, because again, it's a balancing act. We have to be able to be, flexible in regards to what we're doing based on what our goals are. So yeah, NEAT is king. Don't always, pretty much there's a whole big thing of saying it's not all about the gym, guys.
Right.
Can we just say that NEAT is really neat? Like,
we can. Boom.
New shirt.
NEAT is neat. Yeah,
NEAT
that's
is
what,
neat.
Tim, you got to get your own merch and have
Yeah,
that on there.
NEAT is
I wear a
neat.
NEAT is neat shirt.
Yeah,
I'll wear that.
NEAT is neat.
I'll wear
doing
that.
it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah, it's key. It's definitely an important part.
Okay, we have, oh my God, questions.
I know. I'm like, there's so many good ones. So,
I know, and we've said like we don't want to just like when we have guests, we don't want to just like bombard you with questions about your profession and your specialty. But I'm not gonna lie, I like them. I like these questions.
Well, I was just going to ask him because, like, I know we won't get to every single question that's been asked, but like, do you have resources or things that people can go to after if they're like, I just want to get more of Kim and all the cool stuff she's saying? Where can people go for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, so my podcast, I cover a lot of these topics that people have asked me. That's why I do the podcast, is to try to cover a bunch of different topics. I bring on experts, I bring on guests, active bariatric individuals to answer lots of questions. So podcast is probably the best place where you can actually listen. I go through a lot. You can see the topics. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can find the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast. But I would just say too, any questions, you can also forward those to me if you'd like, and I'd be happy to answer them if you know who sent. I don't know if you could see who put questions in, or if you'd like to email me directly, you guys, Kim at Active Bariatric, or you can just go onto my Instagram and message me there, Active Bariatric, and I'd be happy to answer the questions.
Can you fit in a back pocket, Kim? Somebody wants to know.
Can I put Kim in my back pocket? I don't know.
Not quite there.
No, not quite there yet.
If your name was Rob,
maybe it was
perhaps.
Rob.
Yeah, but Rab,
close. Wrong vowel. I think we should see if we can try to get all these questions, and then
do it.
I'll send them to Kim, and then we will do a post with all the information, and we'll do it to sexy time music. Oh, I think
you're
going
to scare Kim again.
Oh my God. What people didn't see was, I put my headphones on, I sat down, and it was just like a screen, and then all of a sudden the sexy music went, and I was like,
I know. I always say we gotta warn our guests, you guys, and then we never do, and it is kind of funny. But sorry, in your
it's
expense.
okay. It was my things were so loud. It's okay.
Oh my gosh, Murphy, you got any good questions? I know that things are finally working.
Yeah, things are a little glitchy still on my end. Not sure what the problem is, but I love all the questions, and a lot of people have asked the questions that I had, especially about protein. That's really huge for me in my daily life. So I'm just sitting back and just kind of sitting at your feet and enjoying. We lost Shay.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently only two of us can speak.
At a time. So if you and Shay are talking, I'll dip out and I'll come back afterwards.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My goodness.
But love all of this information. I'm just absorbing it like a sponge. This is definitely an episode I need to go back and watch again and again, because there's tons of great information in here. And some of it I'll be honest, I'm just not at that place because I'm not at the gym. I'm not as active as Rob. But and I have no idea what some of the stuff is that you're talking about. But I'm learning, and I think a lot of us are, and the questions are great, and it's an honor to have you back on the show again.
Thanks, Mark.
And you're always welcome here, and this has been a great episode despite the technical difficulties and whatnot, but
it wouldn't be a
the internet again.
First JVYs, now this.
Oh gosh, guys, you're just crushing things. I don't know.
If you want to see Kim be the first person to be on the show 3 times, let us know in the comments. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, Kim. Like, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this topic, but I love seeing all the comments and all the questions, because I really do think that, men in bariatrics was one thing, and I think that's opening up a lot more. And I think the other part of it is people being very active post-op, and that's another part of it. And those were 2 of the main things that I was concerned about when I was pre-op. And when I had my surgery, I couldn't find people who are very active, or men very active. And now we're seeing a ton of that, which I absolutely love. And you are a big part of that and a great resource for all those people who want to live that lifestyle. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that is why I did, why I went off and did my own business, because I just found that there's just like no information out there. And like you and I have talked about so many times, there's not a lot of research on the active bariatric population. And I am hoping the more and more that we just keep having these conversations, you guys, and we just keep pushing our, the surgical centers, whomever will listen, colleges, universities, we need research on this population to understand when we go through a rapid weight loss phase and we're losing both fat and muscle mass, how does that impact our resting metabolic rate? How does that impact our ability to gain muscle? And more importantly, how does that impact our energy needs, beyond the 8 to 1,200 calories, because that is not it. That's not it. The 60 to 80 gram protein a day, it's not it. And for folks that have more active goals. So I'm really hoping that it grows over time, and that we look in that area more.
100%. Great suggestion. Candace says we need to do this once a month. So much information in this area. Hey, shoot, Kim, the trilogy. You have a trilogy now.
You could be our first waiting table trilogy.
If you have a trilogy, we are going to make an intro video. It's going to be so epic. It's going to have the music, and then
us all like
it's going to be dun, da, 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 and that's going to break into sexy time music just like that and scare the crap out of people. Everyone's saying like this is one of their favorite lives, one of the favorite episodes. This episode has gone way too quick. It's been super, super helpful. Yeah, it's been awesome. They're going to rewatch. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Kim.
My pleasure.
Makes me, I want to go eat food now. That's what
Let's
I'm
go.
like.
Are you going to eat carbs? Are you going to eat carbs?
I'm going to make some I'm going to heat up some taco soup.
Taco soup
has protein, carbs, fat, has all the good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Awesome. I had a taco. I had taco and shrimp cocktail. I had both.
Oh,
I was like
shrimp taco cocktail.
But I had them separately, and I was like, why don't I just make tacos?
I
don't know.
It's like you're in college again.
I know.
Something so fancy about shrimp cocktails, though.
I know.
It's like so fancy.
The Costco shrimp cocktail that comes in like a freaking like huge. We get two containers, and me and my kids and my husband, we're just like
down the shrimp, huh?
Yeah, good
it's your recipe for gout.
Too much uric acid.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome. Shay, you want to share with us what's going on next week?
Yeah, so next week, I'm really excited about next week because there are no smelly boys allowed next week. It's an all girls episode next week. So it's going to be some of my very girly friends in the community. We're going to hop on, and it's going to be our Halloween episode. So there may be some spooktacular surprises that you'll find during that episode. So make sure you tune in. The boys you guys can still watch if you want, but it's girls only, and we're going to have a fun time without y'all. We're going to talk about periods, hormones.
I didn't do that.
And did you do that? And she's like, she did that. Effect for sure. So yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. And so yeah, if you guys want to have get in your cozy PJs, your TWT merch, have some snacks, light some candles, it's gonna be a fun girly time.
Oh sheesh, you could play sexy time music all episode if you're doing that.
Girly time music, I don't know, I might
girly
just switch
time music
up, you guys. It's gonna be a different episode next week, that's for sure.
I love it.
I'm gonna show up. I'll be dressed as a girl.
Perfect.
There you go.
You can be. I'm Rob, and I'm the girl.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay. Done. Done.
Practicing.
I know. Well, this was friggin' awesome. I absolutely love this episode, as I loved the last one, but I think this one was just amazing. Kim, thank you so much for sharing all your experience, all your wisdom, and everyone here, thanks so much for all you guys for joining us on another episode of the Waiting Table podcast, where we're serving the weight loss community.
On to the time.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Look, Kim knows it. She knows the drill.
See,
I feel something coming in my ears.
Yes.
If it wasn't a video, I was gonna play the sexy time music to this. Oh, we need to do that. We need
Our
to get
goal,
that.
Kim, is to get the person who sings the sexy time music. We need to find him, and we want him to make us a custom track.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or even better, when we do our first meetup, waiting table meetup, he's gonna play at it. He's gonna play sexy time music.
Yes.
I think
love
we
it.
definitely need to do it. Oh, it's gonna be good. This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye, guys.